All of us at Geringhoff would like to thank you for taking the time to view this video. You will find the information presented here to be informative and helpful in performing service to Geringhoff harvest machines. Whenever servicing a Geringhoff product, please observe all safety decals and warnings. Use factory-supplied safety supports on the combine and the Geringhoff head. Use proper safety equipment required for the task. This may include, but is not limited to, eye protection, foot protection, hearing protection, proper clothing, hand protection, proper tools, and other equipment and supplies as required for the service to be performed.
Hi, this is Geringhoff Product Support. Today we're going to talk to you about servicing the disc shaft on a Rota disc hornhead. The first step in servicing the shaft would be to remove the disc shaft from the row unit. To do this, you remove the 4 bolts on the cap on the bearing housing, and then there's 4 bolts on the base. The bolts in the bearing cap are Allen heads, and the 4 bolts on the base are hex bolts. To remove the hex bolts, use a 13 millimeter box end wrench or open end wrench. Box end wrench would have to be a thin wall to fit over the bolt between the head of the bolt and the shaft. Once the bolts are removed from the bearing casting, the casting can be tapped on the side to remove it from the bearing casting. There are 2 alignment pins that help hold that part in place. Whenever servicing these row units, always keep these caps with the row unit that they came from. Once the bolts are out, there is a little lip on the base of the gearbox, and you may require some help with a pry bar or something to get it off of the gearbox. To remove the old disc, remove the nut from the end of the shaft. Take care not to lose the thin washer between the nut and the bearing. And then the discs can be removed a number of ways: with a gear puller, with a bearing press. Sometimes it works to use like an air chisel, and sometimes they'll just slide right off just with mechanical force by pulling on them. And as you pull them off, clean the shaft. Makes it easier for the next one to come off. In the Geringhoff parts kit that we have, the kit comes with the spacers that go between the discs as well as the discs. We'd always recommend replacing those spacers at the same time as replacing the discs. There is some wear to those spacers as well. Prior to putting the new parts on, put some lubrication on the shaft so that the next time the shaft has to be serviced, it'll be easier to get it apart again. After the last disc is put on, we'd reinstall the rotating seal. It isn't always necessary to replace this part, but if you do, it comes as a kit with some O-rings and some spiral snap rings that need to be assembled. There's a drawing that comes with the kit that outlines where these parts go. assemble the parts to the seal and then reinstall that on the disc shaft. And finally install the bearing and the nut. Always put a new nut every time you're servicing one of these disc shafts. Make sure we reinstall the thin washer, install the new nut. Torque the nut. Reinstall the disc shaft into the row unit. Always put new bolts in the base on this disc shaft. The heads do wear and it makes it easier to get it apart the next time if we started with new bolts. Insert the bearing cap back on and install the 4 bolts. After we've finished servicing the disc shafts, run the head for about 30 seconds and feel on the bearing holders to make sure that they are not getting warm. They should be cool to the touch. If they're getting warm, that indicates that we have a problem with the bearing holder and it needs to be replaced.
On behalf of Geringhoff Product Support, thanks for watching, and as always, if you have any questions about the video that you have just watched, you can contact us on our service hotline.